Hi guys, and today we're going to be setting up my brand new spanking Pedaltrain Novo 18 board. This beautiful piece of aluminum and metal of sorts. I guess aluminum is metal. I already covered with the Velcro which came inside of it, and it's already getting some hair on it, which I'm trying to keep clean and pretty. This thing is going to be a significant step up after my current SKV board. Although it does not have its own power, this thing is a lot lighter, and this thing is going to be a lot more professional to carry around and really lower the downgrade time. Plus, with this new case, it's actually not going to bounce around as much. I've been meaning to get to my pedal board, but there's only so much you could do with the other one. And of course, since this guy has no power of its own, we got ourselves the Voodoo Lab Pedaltrain Pedal Power 2 Plus. I'm not really sure why it's a plus, but it's a nice little thing right here. We're gonna get back down there. As a little extra boost, I got myself the little Pedaltrain booster, the little riser, as you can see here. It's just gonna be a little step up and kind of makes it more perpendicular to. I'm probably gonna put my tube screamer on it just to have it closer up. And the case. Let me get the case while we're here. Now this case here is pretty fancy. It's still a soft shell case. It's not going to be the touring case they have here. But the case itself looks pretty good on the inside. But most importantly are some of the small little details that you'll notice. Like here in the back you see that they have a little padding here. These are tiny little details, and of course if you're handy enough with the tools you can probably attach it yourself. But they really do make a difference. And this thing right here is a beauty. It's just, look at this hook. Focus. It's small things like this. My previous board had, these things were plastic. And naturally after about maybe a month or two of usage, this thing snapped and I had to carry around with my hand. It's just, I don't know, it's minor things like this, but they make the product so much nicer. Or like for example, you could enclose this thing to carry it closely. Makes a nice handle. Little things like this really make this, worth the money. Because after all, at the end of the day, you're still spending $200 on a freaking piece of aluminum. So, it's the little things that do make it better. And now we're gonna go down to the view. Okay. Now, let's talk about the setup. My setup is actually very, very simple. It doesn't use a lot of pedals, and that's kind of the way I want to keep it. But the ones I do use, well, for the most part, I consider to be essentials. So the first thing that we're gonna go through the effects loop, and the first thing I'm gonna use is my Ernie Ball volume pedal. This thing got a nice piece of Velcro on it, it works. So I'm not gonna remove it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Ideally, you want to put it along the lines. So if it's gonna be like this, you want to put 3 strips, one here, one here, one here. And I might still do that when I have the time. I might just remove this thing, kind of use a little bit of Glue Gun to get the stickiness out of it, and just once it's solidified its place here, like if it's going to be applying to these 3 rows, I'm just going to run 3 separate strips here just to have it to be really sticky to the board. But yeah, so having the volume pedal in the effects loop, I learned pretty much really early on is that it's wonderful. It really is. You get the same saturation, get the same gain, and you can lower down the volume. And if it's in the effects loop, you don't drop off the gain. You drop off the volume, just the volume. If you're running it, of course, in front, if you're running it as a volume pot, essentially it becomes a volume pot, which is what some people want. If you're playing something country-esque or blue-esque, you want to roll off the gain sometimes. But when it comes to my metal stuff, I want to keep the gain exactly where it is. Just dick around with the volume a little bit. Next up in the chain is the new addition to it is the Harmonist, the Boss PS6. Now this thing is this thing's a smart harmonizer. So what it does essentially, it harmonizes thirds, fifths. I think it does sevenths. No, it does. No, it does already an octave. So it does octaves, and then it does like a 3-voice harmonies too. Now the thing is, they do sound cheesy if you use them. However, in a right balance, it does add a little bit of a juice to your solos. Especially when you have no second guitarist, this thing really does fatten the sound up. It's meant to be used sparingly. Essentially, you play a solo, and then when it comes to that very memorable passage, you hit that thing and you play some sweet notes in there. You unclick it and you start back to the shredding. or if you could have that really cool sound, like as if you're harmonizing with the keyboardist. Like for example, if you're doing some kind of like some power metal. Next in my chain is the Ibanez DE7 Delay Echo. This thing, I mostly use it on a delay setting. This thing is really cool. Like, I know there's a lot of there's a lot of different pedals who are better than this. There's the Boss DV3, for example. There's the Eventide stuff. There's MXR Carbon Copy, for example. But you know, I had this pedal for quite a long time, and you know, it does what it's supposed to do. It creates a little bit of a delay and a little bit of an oscillation when it comes to that delay. So it kind of like, ooh, it kind of vibrates a little bit on this place. And you know, it's good enough for what it does. Eventually, I will want to get something fancier. I would want to get, for example, some Eventide or some maybe the Carbon Copy, for example, maybe the Flashback from TC Electronics. But I will still keep this thing around, and I will make this thing secondary delay. It would have like a smaller delay, and then the second delay will act as the main delay. It kind of could be like a separate little tap. I'll probably replace this thing when that day comes, just to save space. Or, we'll see, maybe not. And last but not least, my favorite thing, the Holy Grail analog. At first I was really pissed off that my amp, my Blackstar amp, did not come with a freaking reverb. I thought that was just heinous. Like, what kind of amp does not come with reverb? That just makes no sense whatsoever. So, but then when I got this thing and I got to play around with the settings, first I was just tiny bit. I was just like barely rolling into spring reverb. Now I'm in the whole section and I love it. Main reason is because my sound is very precise. It's not a very fat, meaty, it doesn't fill in the stuff. That's what my other guitars does. My sound is the top boost. It's the very shrill, very presence heavy, very treble heavy sound that cuts through that butter. Trying to get like kind of the In Flames style, just buzzing there. And this thing really does help to compensate that. Your sound still is very high and very, very cutting, but it doesn't sound it doesn't sound dinky. This thing's gonna go here back. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm gonna elevate my delay a little bit higher. I'm gonna put a little block on it just to have it stand out, so I could really just access it anytime I wish. Okay, good. Now we're done with the effects loop. You know, it sends it here, it runs this way, and returns back to the loop. Now we're gonna go to the actual from the guitar. First things first is my main overdrive, and even this I think is only there for the topping. This is just essentially the cream on the top, the gravy on the mashed potatoes, if you will. This is the Tube Screamer TS-808. I've done a lot of research, listened to a lot of clips of the 808 original. There's the reissue, there's the Maxon version. There's tons of fucking Tube Screamers out there, and I decided to go with this one because this one is a subtlety master. Like, if you're looking for overdrive to be your main sound, if you have like a warm kind of like just warm sound coming from your amp, and you want the overdrive to be kicked in, you get the 9. If your amp is already a metal beast and you just want a little bit of that gravy on top, this thing's for it because its knobs are very subtle. To really have any like major effect, you have to just like crank the thing all the way to one end or the other. Just kind of dial it in tiny by this is very good. You don't have to just move tiny bits, but like just moving it around will let you dial it in just the way you like it. That's just right. And of course, right afterwards we have the MXR Smart Gate. This thing is a recent addition too. I recently got it. I was not a big fan of gates, and some of the more modern amps already have gates pre-installed, which I do like. But this thing is a lifesaver, and it is different. I used to have a Boss NS2. It did its job, but damn it, it did its job as a club would when it comes to defending your house. You know, this is not elegant. Like Boss, the TS2 is a club. This thing is more of a precise blade. I would say it cuts off just the right amount. If you crank up the triggers, of course it's going to do the same thing, but I keep it very, very low, and I keep the full gate on just to remove the hiss from it, so it does its job really well. And then of course, and the last thing on here is a Sony DGZX, some combination numbers wireless receiver. This thing is, I would say, well, on the budget side of receivers, but it does not suck. And dear Lord, I am so thankful for this thing right here. So it has, of course, an instrument cable balanced out. It has an instrument cable out. It could run on a 9 or a 12. I highly recommend running on a 12. And now that I'm going to have the Voodoo lab on it, I can actually finally run it on the full setting that's supposed to run. Running on a 9, running on about 9 volt is great if you're playing something simple, but it needs its full power. But this thing is a cool little thing. It lets you run around like a maniac across the stage, and it doesn't cost a huge amount, but it does have the quality that I like. And on the very bottom of the page, we're gonna have the foot switch from Blackstar. Now this thing is a huge fucking beast. It's big, it's hulky, it's annoying, but it does exactly what I want. It has 4 channels, and that's, if you could say 4 channels, why would you need this? Reasons. Some folks, what they do is they turn off their tube screamer, and then their sound becomes clean and manageable. I don't have the same thing. I have to go to my bright clean sound, and that's the one that's going to be the one where I'm strumming things acoustically. I'm still debating about which one to make my lead sound. I've actually recently been better with the warm clean. I actually cranked the warm clean and put a lot of crunch on it just to make it crunchy, but still have enough space in it. And then the 2 crunch and super crunch are my channels for my main sound. The super crunch is the one that I leave on, that's my main rhythm sound, and the crunch is slightly boosted clean sound, usually for reserved for certain lead lines or solos. So yes, I need all 4 channels. Let's do first. Boom. Scoot this up a little. Just to give it plenty of space. And last but not least, in the thing is going to be my Boss Chromatic Tuner. I did hope to replace this thing with something smaller, just maybe like a dot size here in the corner, and I still might eventually, but this thing is a tank. It does its job. It's been dropped. I use it all the time at home. I tune with it. It does what it's supposed to do. And it's going to run bypass here into the very part, just to quickly mute it out and quickly go from here. I might not run it bypass either. I might just have it somehow run back into this thing, so it might be a little difficult just to run it in this way, but we'll see.